Okay, so this is kind of a short tutorial on what the book did in the Pareto principle. And this is the fact that something like, 80% of sales will come from the top 20% of products. I've also created a little example where you looked at the Yelp website for online reviews, and we're going to see if 80% of reviews come from 20% of kind of businesses or restaurants, but we'll talk about that more in a minute. Okay, so the idea here is we're trying to work out, um, what percentage. This is kind of a bicycle inventory. So we have different kind of categories, different products, how much we purchase it for, how many we sell it for, and how many we've on hand. So it's just a very simple inventory sales sort of database. And what we want to do is, in terms of inventory value, just look at the top 80% and see what proportion of the product sets it is. So the first thing we need to do is calculate the inventory value. And we're going to calculate this as the purchase cost, D4, times the quantity at hand. Okay, and then we're just going to drop down. Right. Now, this exercise was kind of going to show, one of the reasons was to show how to use the sort feature in Excel. If you go to kind of the data tab at the top, we're going to click sort. And the idea is, if you click within a table, Excel is kind of intelligent enough to work out what's in that, where the boundaries of the table are. But if you're unsure, you could probably select the entire table. And we're going to do, you notice my data has headers as clicked, so it doesn't try and sort the actual inventory value header. And we're going to sort by inventory head value. And we're going to pick the largest, because we're going to see, going from largest to smallest, what proportion of the kind of items have 80% of the inventory value. So here, if we want to work out the percentage of inventory value. And basically what we're going to do here is we're just going to find the percentage of the total. But first we actually have to calculate the total. So we're going to use the sum, and we're going to sum all these values. It's column H, goes from H2 to H27. And we have a sum of 20,000. And so we'll say here that this percentage of 20,000 is H4 over, just remind me this was in H28. Now we put the dollar in here because as in previous examples, I'm going to drop down and I want to keep the denominator as H28. So let's go all the way down. And you see each of these has divided by H28. Now this is not a percentage at the moment, so we can solve that. We'll select it, right click, format cells, and we're now a percentage. And we want to find the cumulative percentage. So that's going to be basically the sum of everything so far. So a nice little trick for doing this is going to do sum of everything so far. But at the moment, this is the sum from I4 to I4. Oh, I made a minor mistake here. That shouldn't be H2, it should be H4, but it's not actually going to make any difference because H3 and 4 don't have any numeric values. So anyway, we're going sum I4 to I4. But the first number is always going to be I4 because we're doing the cumulative. So let's put a dollar on that. So it's going from I4 to I4. And we'll see what happens when we do the drop down. So you see this is number one, I4 to I4. The next one is I4 to I5. And the next one is I4 to I6. And you can see these cumulative percentages coming about. So what do we do next? Well, actually, let's just first just format these kind of nicely. So let's just format it to Arial as everything else. It's going to be Arial 12. And we're just going to, we'll do a rough kind of, that one missed out. And we could kind of think about this roughly. So we'll do count. So just a little trick. If you start with the number 1, you drag this down. You'll get a little kind of icon, autofill icon at the bottom, and you can again click fill series, and it will actually fill you a series. So we're kind of at 80%, we're around like 10 out of 24, so we're roughly about 40%. But we can actually calculate that exactly. So we'll say Pareto, 80% of inventory. And what we want to do is we want to work out the ones less than how many are, up to 80%. So we'll say, this proportion are up to 80%. And this is, how many of the entire inventory lines. So let's just do, this was like J4 to J27. We'll actually do count if J4 to J27, and my criteria is less than 0.8. Now, we're not using 80%. The percentages are formatting. These numbers are still like in the underlying spreadsheet, they're still proportions. So we're just going to do count if J4 to J27. And I'll just make sure that works. And we need to reformat it again in a minute because it shouldn't be a number. And then we're going to do divide by count. Again, J4 to J7. So it's just working out what proportion it takes to get to 80%. And this really should be a percentage. So it's actually 40%. So this would be like 10 over 24. It's just times 100% is just over 40%. So about 40% of the lines, the top 40% of the products make up about 80% of the inventory. So it doesn't actually this doesn't hold with the Pareto principle. But I did find one that actually did. Let's just make this all the same font. It's always nice to have consistent spreadsheets. So just look at the other one I did. This was exactly the same. Basically what this is I downloaded a load of Yelp reviews from the Yelp website of online reviews. And we looked at all the different restaurants and how many reviews they have. Now Yelp is kind of a site, it's kind of like a social networking combined with online review sites. And you find like trendy city restaurants tend to have a lot of reviews, suburban Applebee's less so. So what we actually do is we try and work out all these restaurants, and there's like over 6,500 restaurants. We do exactly as before. We sort by the review count, and then we kind of do the percentage and the cumulative percentage of the top reviewed restaurants. And then we kind of go down until we get 80%. And we do exactly the same as before. But this time I put it at the top. And we look at what percentage is less than 80% over the total number. And we now say that 80% of the reviews are in the top 23% of restaurants, which is a much kind of closer to the Pareto principle. So this wasn't in the exam, the book, but I just thought this was actually a slightly better example of the Pareto principle. And again, if you want to just see the Yelp website, I'm sure you've seen it before, it's www.yelp.com. Okay, that's it for this video.